Sure.
We're live.
All righty. We are live on Facebook. Welcome, welcome family to the Empower Hour. I am Al Kumar.
And I am Hanifa.
And we have a super duper special show for you guys this evening. I don't know about you, Hanifa, but I have been really anticipating this show with Baba Baruti tonight.
So have I.
Yes.
I am glad we are all here, finally.
Finally, all here. So, special guest, the one and only Mwalimu Baruti is on the line with us this evening, coming from Atlanta, and he's going to be sharing with us. The topic of this show is Ride or Die. What makes the family unit so crucial to our survival? It looks like you there at the school now, huh, Baba?
Yes, I am.
Okay, wonderful backdrop. Yes. Wonderful. It's a whole lot to take in.
Yes.
Yes, founder of Akoben Institute in Atlanta, and author of 27 books. Yes, you heard me right, 27 books. So a wealth of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding with us tonight. So we are honored to have you on the show, Baba. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Yes, and I appreciate being asked to come on. I honestly do. I have been watching and hearing nothing but good things about this show. I think it's very important. It's very, very critical, because it's like when I tell the students, we got to stop lying to our people, making stuff watered down. These are, and they continue to be. It's not just starting of serious times. These are deadly serious times, and you can't keep playing these silly games. Talking about the family, I'm looking, behind me. I love this backdrop. This was an idea I've seen at a number of serious African family home where you have things that reflect the idea of family on this board. And I wish I could show folks the entire thing, but I'm honored. I'm very glad to be here, and especially this topic. And we say there's no such thing as accidents, but I should say, and this has been a major topic of discussion with Iniana over the last week and a half. There have been things going on in the family that needed to be dealt with, talked about, from older folks to some of our youngest of folks. If I may, I would start to answer that question in the same way that we look at the idea of Black inferiority, the idea that is pushed so hard. It still is being pushed so hard and still being accepted by us. A lot of studies still show. So if we are, again, the simple common sense, if we're so genetically inferior intellectually, then why is so much effort being put into pushing us down? We would naturally fall to the bottom if we're that sorry. So when I look at, as a sociologist, as I've looked at the family being one of the institutions in society, other ones being the economy, religion, education, et cetera, et cetera. The family is one of the main institutions in any successful society. The military is also an institution in any successful society, which says quite a bit about us. But the family was the first one to be attacked. The family was the first family to be attacked, and it's still the institution is being attacked more than anything else. So if our families were not effective in doing what they do, then why would they be being attacked more than anybody else? We gotta look at the statistics show that African people globally, as much as we are being systematically destroyed, if you will, and I'm not saying that in any final sense, but as much as the systematic attack is on against us, we still have more extended families than any other group on the planet. More care of grandma, granddad, auntie, whoever, uncle, whoever, cousin, but there's still a significant number of us when a bad situation occurs with one of the adults, be it anything from death to losing it to drugs or what have you, more of us bring these children into our families without dealing with the court system than anybody. It is absorbed automatically into the family. There's no question. It may be a matter of who's going to continue to assist bringing in money to whoever in the family has been selected or decided to take those children, but we don't have large discussions about that. Family just automatically absorbed, and we see that in our traditions. And I know every single solitary tradition, especially those that were corrupted since the arrival of the European, the arrival of Arab, is not necessarily the best ones for us to hold on to. But when we're looking at our traditions, we have to go back and look at those things that operate in the spirit. And today, look at those traditions that operate and are developed in the spirit of being African.
Yes, sir.
That's the tradition that we're talking about. When we look at the family, I think it's very important for us to assess the primary role of the family, which would indicate why they're being attacked so seriously. The family is the main unit of socialization in our community. And of course, when we look at our community, we look at an extended family. That's part of the spirit of being African, where everybody in the community, is family, except those who choose by behavior, what have you, not to be a part of that, which is in rural communities, if you will, in small communities is not the case. That's why in traditional Africa, when you said mama, that applied to all the women in the community.
Mhm.
To Baba, that applied to all the men in the community. It wasn't, you didn't really make that kind of a distinction. And well, we didn't make that kind of distinction for a reason. It was a closeness that was expressed, and it didn't mean that you had to like everybody. Which reminds me of a statement I'm sure everyone has heard, where this brother was in fact, I was there. This brother was in a disagreement with his complement, and they were trying to be polite because I was there.
Mhm.
And he said to her, he said, I love you, but sometimes I don't like you. And that's the same thing, how we operate within our community. It doesn't have to be liking everybody. It's just that we know that we're family and we act according, in those roles. So in the family, you say the woman is the first teacher, and there's a reason for that, because she is the first teacher from before birth. So the child is already learning what it means to be whoever he or she is before they come into this physical realm of being independent from their mother's womb. So the mother being the first teacher is important to that scheme. You can't separate the mother from that. But of course, you have to live in a community where the mother is respected. And this may deviate from the point a little bit, but it's very different now than it was when I was coming up. For folks, I'm 64, so it wasn't that long ago. The level of honor and respect that was held for African women and African mothers when I grew up, it's nothing. Today is nothing compared to that. I mean, the worst insult that you could say to a Black male, and of course I didn't really hang around with the sisters, but the Black male, the worst thing you could say to a Black male was something about his mother. You could call them all kinds of ends, which back then were fighting words. You could, say what you wanted to about them, but to say something about my mother, the worst insult, believe it or not, was your mother wears combat boots. There was no other conversation. There was no other discussion. You were immediately involved in a fight, fist fight. Another Black male in the community critiqued his own mother in that way, then he was going to get beat down by other brothers in the community who were his peers. You didn't do that. Mother's Day was a major point of celebration. Father's Day, well, that's dad. But Mother's Day was a major point of celebration because
What happened, Baba? What happened?
Well, a lot of things happened. One of the things that happened was that men were, and I'd have to qualify this, but men were removed from the home significantly. So you didn't have the level of discipline that you have now, and that discipline comes in more ways than just somebody pulling out a belt or a switch off a tree. My father, he hit me one time, Now my brother, he got some spankings coming up, but my father hit me one time. I was the baby. And that was when I think I was 17, 18. And I said something about the military, which was what he worked in. And I was talking about Europeans in the military and blah, blah, blah. And they're taking over the world and they're controlling all of this and that. Of course, I ended up in the military, it's sad to say. But all he had to do was look at me. He didn't have to say anything. Now, my mother, she might have had to do something, might have had to say something, and she never said, wait till your father gets home. The understanding of what he had the potential of doing. It's sort of like today with the students that we have. They know that they're crazy, especially the boys. They know that they're crazy, but they know that me as a grown man, I'm crazier, and they don't know how much crazier I am. So there is a limit to what they're going to try. That's pretty much erased. You've had the spoilage for a significant number of families. You've had the spoilage that has been brought in where we're trying to buy our children. We try to, we give them adult decisions that put them in a position that removes their respect from the mothers. Okay, when you operate in a reality that is based on exploitation, that's based on people using people, then the person who is seen as the weakest is the one who gets used the most. Mothers are our best nurturers. Mothers are our greatest nurturers. And children, being children, they read that as weakness. They read that as being a sucker. Well, I can't go to dad, but I can ask mom, and I'll get it. I just got to ask her like 40,000 times if need be. But mom, she's going to knuckle under to whatever it is. So you've had a lot of children who have read that wrong. A lot of children read that really, really wrong, and they think that they're grown. They think that they can act in certain ways toward their mother. I've heard reports from social workers who I know who talk about the children whose cases they're involved with who use the B word when they're talking to their mom. They call it that. And the first time I heard it, I'm like, I went immediately back to childhood in terms of my thinking. But so the men have been largely significantly, I won't say largely, but significantly removed from their role as fathers and discipliner of last resort. The mothers aren't receiving the respect that they deserve because, well, for a lot of them also, not only the spoiling, which I really consider to be a major factor in this, but also from the vantage point that children are also always looking for power, which I think is natural. They want to rule their world. They want to decide what they want to eat for dinner. Of course they want to do that. That's and they're looking for power, and they look up to people who have power because they're studying them to see how they get their power, so they get that power also. They see how the system treats African women. They see what mom can't do this. Mom is supposed to handle this in school, but she can't because the school system, shuts her down or what have you. They see this, so they don't see the kind of power that they have been taught that they should respect. They absolutely do not see that. In addition to that, are the moral values in our community, the sense of being ethical, being right, of being righteous, of doing the right thing. That's an individual choice. Whatever benefits me, well, that's morally correct. We've been brought up in a reality that has taken the oracles of Ma'at, which are the guidelines of moral behavior for African people, however they were written in other parts of Africa outside of Kemet. This reality that we live in has flipped all of those upside down on their head and has us glorifying the opposite of what they are. So, you go down the oracles of Ma'at and everything in there that is beneficial to the family, that contributes to community, we're doing the exact opposite, or our children are doing the exact opposite. And they're being protected by a state that wants them to be something other than, who we are.
Baba,
Yes.
I just want to touch on something you just said that I thought was really important, which I completely agree with. I'm raising two boys and I see it. There's this this thing of power, right? Specifically in the 8-year-old. So you said children are looking for, they're looking for power, a sense of autonomy in a sense, right? And so they look to those who they see in power. And as parents, I mean, this is just my opinion on this, is that we are the ones in power in their eyes, right? And so how we demonstrate our power is what they also emulate. So you mentioned the social workers when you were saying that, you know, you see the children, and so for me, if I could add to that, because I work in the social welfare field as well, in foster care to be exact, and one of the things that I do observe is, yes, you see that child, and even teachers will tell you this when they see a child that's like, you know, cursing and really aggressive or whatever, and they're like, well, when they meet the parent, it explains a lot. Right. And so when you touched on the power dynamic, how much of that power that our children might display, how much of it are they getting from the family dynamic, whether it's a parent that's demeaning, aggressive, whatever that may be, how much of that responsibility falls on the mother-father unit?
I would say almost all of it, and whether it's an ideal world in a good way or bad way, because your first teachers are at home. The home is where you're supposed to be first socialized, you know, where you learn ABCs and 1, 2, 3s and how to treat other people and, you know, your siblings and other adults. So that dynamic, if you don't, what they see is either going to be what they see that they emulate, or, if you will, what they don't see and see as an area that they can play around in, that they operate in. So if, what would be a good example of that? Well, there was a psychological study that was done back in the 70s, and it was looking at whether the mother or the father had the great influence on the child in terms of who they emulated. And what they found was it didn't really make a difference. Whatever parent was exercising the most power in the home was the one that the children tended to gravitate toward. So we have very early, before other people come in the picture, even if you have a lot of people in your family and they're around the baby a lot, the baby still knows mom, the baby still knows dad. Yes. Well, the baby's going to be looking to them as guidance. They're going to be looking at their expressions when certain things are said and done in the home. If the home is very volatile and you know, crazy all over the place, then they're going to see that as the norm. It's just like they say, and we often forget that the daughter goes and looks for somebody like her father. You know, the son goes and looks for somebody like their mom, and that might not be 100% correct, but I look around and there's a lot of that. So these children look to them as models of who they need to become. The home is a place where children practice being adults through their play, through their toys, through their friends and, you know, their peers. They practice you know, whatever it is they want to be when they grew up, and they practice being mommy, being daddy, and all the rest of it. They get the lessons on what it is from their mom and dad. So a lot of things are not said to them. You need to behave this way, stop acting like that, blah, blah, blah. But they emulate, I would say almost completely, what they see their parents do. You couldn't have told me when I was in the 6th grade. In fact, my mother told me, I wrote some report against it, and I did some research against it. You couldn't have told me in a million years that I was going to smoke when I became an adult, but my father smoked. And when I became an adult, I smoked, and I'm not blaming him for that. I just didn't see it as a behavior that I should reject, because that, you know, dad did. I mean, what's the big deal? But that model is set in place, I argue, very, very early, very, very early on.
Can you speak to?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No. Go ahead, please.
Speak to the importance, because we're talking about the mother, father, you know, the mama baba dynamic, right? And the household. Can you speak to the importance of the village as an extension of that? Because at least from my observation, I'm finding that is lacking tremendously. the wisdom of the elders,
Mm-hmm.
not just to guide the children, but to also guide the couples that are raising the children. And also to it's robbing our children of the richness that comes with a community of people who have a whole lot of different sorts of contribution, because a conversation about relationships with an elder may sound different than a conversation about a relationship with my aunt who is 25 or 30. You know what I mean? So can you speak to the importance of the village as it pertains to the family unit, and it being an extension of that?
Absolutely. The first point that I would make, though, we hear a lot of it thrown around that, it takes a village to raise a child. We hear that a lot. That needs to be qualified, because just because you have a group of people there and they're living in a space where they're connected in this way doesn't mean that you have a intelligent, commonsensical, mature village. And we're trying to raise mature individuals who know what they need to do and have clear understanding of what life is about. So we need to, you have to have a centered community to raise a centered child, or whatever adjective you want to use to preface that with. And we forget that. Just saying that it's a village, a group of people, we assume that because there are adults around that there's common sense. I don't, in our tradition, and I would argue that that tradition has gone nowhere. That's vital. The village is vital to the success of it, because the village provides not only for the children, but it provides models of relationships to the adult couples who are there. So they have folks who are older than them that they can look at. So you have generations that can look at the generations that came before them. This is supposed to be, when I talk to the young folks about things like that, I use the word epigenetic. The stage that's before lays the foundation for what comes after it. So when I'm looking at my parents, then okay, now I have a model of what it's like to be married. I say, okay, I know there's going to be some disagreements involved. I know that there are domains where he makes decisions and she leaves it alone, and there are domains where she makes decisions, and there's that kind of respect that goes along with that, and that didn't just come overnight. It also, that village gives the children a sense of the development of a relationship, or the relationship between couples within the community. If you, and it's like you said, it's an advisory thing. If I'm 28 years old and I'm trying to get some advice on relationship with my complement, then I'm not going to go. I might go for ideas from people who are at or around my age. But when I really want the serious truth, when I really want to know what goes on in relationships from people who have enormous hindsight, which elders are supposed to have, or for me, I wouldn't call them elders, I just say olders. If they have that kind of hindsight, then I should be able to go to them and get a serious idea about, okay, I'm supposed to get the truth from them because they love me more than anybody else. We've gone through a process with the family where we have allowed the definition of elders and children to become very distant in terms of their connection. Children don't want to be with the elders because that's boring and everybody talk, and the elders are afraid of the children.
Yes.
And it's not that child did anything, it's just things that are heard and blah, blah, blah. So the ability to pass that information on has become more and more difficult because folks aren't listening. Folks don't want to listen. Folks aren't talking. Folks don't want to talk. That's not to say it's not reversible. It is reversible, but we have to not think huge. We got to think with small, immediate, how would I say, nuclear villages, where you have this small cluster, and we can work this out, and then somebody of like mind, or people or couples of like mind, can join this, and we can build something from there, because there's chaos all around. There's bad advice all around. There are people now who are supposed to be elders, and they're preying on the younger folks. So we have to, when we're doing this, we really, really, really need to know what we're talking about, we need to be secure with the people who are involved. I also say within the villages that we create, first and foremost, you have to have trust to create those villages. That's one of the things that's really been torn up. But we have to have some kind of a theme like learning to love again, because we don't know what that means. We know what infatuation means, we know what fantasy means, but we really don't actually know, because we've been brought up in a reality where everything is instant gratification, and where if you can't have your way now, then I'm gone. You know, instantly. It's not a matter of working. The idea that struggle is important for the development of relationships, for the development of family,
Of self.
of self. That's critical. When we look back at the wisdom through the ages, we see that concept of struggle over and over and over again. And it got broken down because we hear so many people say, well, I don't want to hear the word struggle. I don't like the idea of struggle because that means work. Well, there's nothing wrong with work. Work is what makes your muscles grow, what keeps them intact. That's why you see old folks out there with the hoe working, and they're strong.
Yes.
Strong. They're not sitting in a hospital bed someplace, they're strong.
And nature teaches us that as well. We see it in nature as well. So yeah.
You're speaking to what we as a people use as a model of who we're supposed to be. So we look to nature.
Yes.
Now we're looking to YouTube. You know, we look to nature to know how to do things naturally. Understanding that when we did it naturally, it was going to come out right. You know, regardless of whether it benefited us immediately or not.
Bob, I have a question.
Yes.
I am one who always attempts to dig into the root, the heart of the matter, get to the root of the issue. And so, because I'm a firm believer that until we understand fully understand how we came to be, how did we get to this predicament? How did we get here? Then I don't think we could clearly grasp the solutions to how we get out. It's almost like having cancer. It's like if you don't understand how you get that disease, then how are you, you know what I'm saying? How do you know what not to do next time? So you won't walk forward moving with that same disease. So if you wouldn't mind attempting to break down in this short period of time that we have and all the questions I know that's coming after this one, but how do we find ourselves in this current predicament with the family structure being not all, but you know, certainly a lot more than a lot of other cultures, so divided in our family and weakened, the chains, the links of the bonds of family so weakened today. How did we find ourselves in this current predicament?
And that is a question that I use in one way or the other whenever I'm talking to young folks about how we got as a people to where we are today. And you're talking about one specific aspect of it, which is connected to all the others. But most of us don't want to hear the horrors of it. And if you don't hear the horrors of it, like you said, if you don't understand the whole story, if you don't dig deep enough, and it's going to hurt. If you're not willing to dig deep to really find out what happened to our ancestors that would move a people who were way up here someplace, who had this village structure, communalism was a way of life, which required trust, all the rest of this, to move from a state where education was the most important thing that a person could have just for themselves, where to scare a woman who was pregnant was the equivalent of a felony in, you know, some of our traditions. So how do we get from here, where folks were mature enough at 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 to produce families and were mature enough to handle it and could rear, you know, children into men and women who were loyal to the community and understood the importance of family and blood and spoke to everybody when they passed by their house on the way to wherever. if we don't understand what tore us from that, what ripped us from that, if we're not willing to accept that, then we can't move forward, because we're, like you said, we're putting together piecemeal solutions to a massive, massive problem. And if we don't straighten out the family first, then all these other institutions are irrelevant. Economics, political, blah, 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 they're irrelevant because there's no loyalty. The family introduces and brings loyalty to the child's sense of reality. I'm loyal to my family. What'd you say about my mom? You know, this is my brother, you know, let me handle this. That sense of loyalty that just comes naturally. It's not taught by words, it's taught by, you know, doing. But to go to your question, you know, it started at the beginning. My interpretation, it started at the beginning of the invasion of the African continent, because we were seeing, people came to us to learn. People came to us to study. They learned about family, about all the things that they need to know, astronomy, etc. They came to us to learn. We look at the major libraries and educational systems and university systems that existed in Africa before the invasion began. Of course, they were here. Arabs were here as well, but they were not in charge. We were in charge. And the model of what it meant to be family and community, we held and controlled that. We begin to lose that as we begin to be scattered. And we begin to be violently relocated around this planet to different places, as the men were put in a position where they could not protect the women, and the women were put in a position where they could not protect the men or their children. The men protect their children, and you begin to, you know, I guess for me, the worst thing that could happen if I was a person who celebrated Christmas, for me to have to look in my daughter's face and tell her that she's not going to have any gifts. Shame and, you know, brokenness. I mean, you just ripped my heart out my chest. So to have to watch people rape your family members, to have to know that it's either going to be death or, you know, somebody kill your wife or somebody else. If you didn't take your daughter, bring her up to his bedroom, take her clothes, close the door, come back in an hour and come and get her. What does that do to the structure of a family, of a sense of I can't trust you to protect me? And it's not a mean, I can't trust you to protect me, but I understand in this, and over generations, this becomes normalized. And when you are in this situation, assuming that the majority of you see the people or the beings, however you want to say that, who are doing this as God-like, all powerful, all knowing, all seeing, you know, that kind of concept, then you forget. People coming, immigrants coming into this country, by the third generation, that third generation has lost a sense of connection to them, especially if they were coming as immigrants to stay, or even if the first group decided they were just coming to make some money and go back. But when it gets to that second generation, that third generation is to stay, and they have, most of them have lost their language unless they're around family who still speaks whatever that language is. Okay, so it's lost. So the values or the valuelessness or the morals or the absence of morals in this reality is what they gravitate toward, because that makes them normal. So in this, the drive for Africans in this reality has been away from family. The drive has been for us to grow into grown children. The drive in this society has been for men to play, to become playboys when they quote unquote grow up. The drive has been for men not to take responsibility for the children that we have. I mean, and this is, a lot of this is a very short period of time, a very short period of time. It's almost a point of pride now to be baby daddy, and that's it. You know, when I was coming up, no, I don't care whether you're happy with it or not. You brought it here, you take care of it, period. And all the men in the community, like, yeah, try and run. You know, we didn't play that. That tough love that they talk about, that was serious. So as this happened, other things begin to be added in, which tore into the heart of the family. There was a brother who said that the goal of Western society has been to break the spirit of Africans. Because if you break a people's spirit, then that's the end of the discussion. And of course, we know that that centers in the family. So if you break the spirit of the parents, then automatically you're going to break the spirit of the children. So the statement was that they have broken the spirit of the Black man with prison, particularly solitary confinement. And for the first time in our story, and when he said the first time in our story, it rang a bell because, you know, when I was a child, you know, men had greater muscle mass, whatever, you know, the idea of hitting a woman, even though I know some people did that, you didn't do that because the greater muscle mass means you're going to break something when you hit, when you connect. And that's the last thing that you wanted to do. So, but the idea of a Black man trying to take a baby, a Black woman's baby out of her hands was beyond our thinking base, because then you'd really see a Black woman fight. You didn't play with that. So this guy said the first thing that they've been able to do that has taken remove Black women from their babies is crack. And he said that was one of the main reasons why it was introduced, because you lost your sense of responsibility. So you've had all of these things, a public school system which is teaching us to run away, to go someplace else, to not see each other's community. Academia says you when you talk about African people, you say them or they, what have you. You don't say us, you don't say we. Okay, and that involves a way of thinking, a society that teaches us that to be integrated into their world is the best possible outcome for a person. So we have been driven to move to sub-assimilate, sub-integrate, sub-amalgamate into their community, no matter what, just to be with them and away from us. We spend so much time running away from us. And when you're running away from yourself, you have no self-love, then, you know, it's common knowledge. You can love yourself, you can't love anybody else.
Baba Baruti?
Yes.
I have a multi-layered question here, right?
Okay.
So
You might have to repeat some back to me.
yeah, it's all right. Okay. So as far as the African family is, because that is what we're speaking about here, is concerned, all right? I have found, like, if I'm researching something, let's say I was once a Christian, so let's say the Bible, I found that a lot of scriptures that people may be expected to live by, it's really antiquated as it pertains to the times we are now living in. So that's one. Like I might say, the child support system, for example, I might say it's antiquated because the purpose for which it was, you know, it's no longer, the times are different. You know what I mean? So as it pertains to culture, the Black family, what is the purpose, right, of the Black family, right? And should we be redefining that purpose under the circumstances that we have found ourselves in? Because I might say, if we were living in an ideal environment where yeah, certain things could happen, you know, and it's like, okay, for example, let's say I say the purpose of the Black family staying together and teaching everything that we do needs to be towards the liberation of Black people, right? But if you live in a society where you are not being oppressed, okay, that definition might be different, okay? So define what the purpose of the Black family is within the context or within the circumstances. What should the purpose of the Black family unit be under the circumstances that we have found ourselves in today?
Okay. And you have said circumstances, and that's how I would have started out my answer. Okay. Nothing can be understood out of cultural context. Nothing can be understood outside of the circumstances in which it lives. And there is a meme that I'll put occasionally. It's not my words. Someone said, since everything must be understood in the context that we are at war. Okay. Mama Rimba would say, well, we're not at war, we're getting warred upon. But you know, it's the same thing in terms of how we need to behave. Under these circumstances, I'm going to take a point from Baba Sanyika, who is in St. Louis. He's one of my Jegna. And Baba Sanyika said, we have to find complements who understand equally that we are at war, okay, and who understand the importance of rearing a family and rearing these children so that they'll know that they're at war. So when they come of age, they will search out somebody who knows the same thing that they do. And they have to, and this, we got to go generation to generation to generation until we are through. To me, there's no, for a sane African family, there should be no objective other than nation building. Okay, there's nothing more important than that, unless it's our goal to disappear. Unless our goal, and there's nothing in the universe I know that said we can't be re-enslaved. So the fact that we are at war for our survival and sanity in so many ways, it's almost like, okay, well that's the family agenda, and there's enough of that you don't have time to do anything else. So within the family, everything from, you know, the basics, protection to reading the right materials, the range of what needs to be, including knowing what to say to who. Okay, so there are certain family members who I have who I know not to say certain things to. I mean, in terms of how they act, they might be CIA, they might be FBI at the same time. They might be so menticidal that they can't take it, and it, you know, does damage, if you will. So all of the things that we know we have to pass on to our children, and that's very difficult to do, because many of us have been brought up, you know, we're supposed to make the children's life easier than ours. They're not supposed to have to go through, you know, what we went through. Nana January Clark said we have to, you know, have the courage to raise, if you will, a sacrificial generation who knows that we're at war, who understands the importance of loneliness of struggle. You know, those kind of ideas, that kind of truth needs to be passed on. They need to know that they are privileged to be in these situations, and with privilege comes responsibility. So being reared to be the leaders in the community, not the ones that are standing behind a microphone and everybody's applauding and, you know, all the rest of it, but to be leaders in terms of actual behavior, doing work. Of course, we have to be the example of that. And for me, the only way for us to really be the example of that is to be families that are of like mind, who have come together, I don't know, 3, 4, depending upon how knowledgeable they are of each other, and to do this in practice. Now, what they do outside of that wall may be a little bit different because they're dealing with an environment, but inside that wall that they've created, I call it a sacred space. Mm-hmm. Inside of that sacred space, then the children need to see how Africans treat Africans, how Africans respond to Africans in a state of war.
Now, to that point,
yes,
if we are a collection, a universal people, we're connected in more ways than one. And if there are a percentage of us who understand that we are at war, and another percentage of us who don't, however, we are all connected in some way, shape, or form, how does that affect our future moving forward? I mean, how do we, you know what I'm saying? How do we win this war with a large percentage of who we're connected to in opposition to even that understanding, let alone moving in that physically, if I'm making any sense?
Oh, very, very much so. And I would agree that that's a small percentage.
What's a small percentage?
The ones who are clear.
Okay.
The ones who understand that we're.
And so how do we?
Well, you know, say 90-some% of the battle is mental. There's a African proverb that says the secret to success is to have no fear. Kwame Nkrumah said, quoting all these folks now, right? Kwame Nkrumah said, "You must act as if it's impossible to fail." Okay, I mean, it's, to me, I do what I'm doing because it's righteous, because I couldn't live with myself any other way. And I know this isn't about me, but it's like any eyes the same way. I do this because I know that the universe is correct. And I know that if the universe is correct, I know that Urugu is wrong because Urugu works against the universe. I know that. I have to believe that. Yikwe Arma talks about healers and being able to see so far into the future that they can do this work. And I know it's bad. I know that it's horrible. I know that it's horrible family members. I know that it's horrible people in the community. I know that it's horrible. And when I look at that, it's depressing. So I have mechanisms in place that allow me to move out of those funks, and to get back on, track and do what I need to do. It's sort of like healing the world, the idea of healing the world, African people healing the world. Was it you can't help nobody until you help yourself? Mm-hmm. We have to be in a position to provide an example for other folks who may know something's going on, but they're not clear about it. So they have to have something to do, something to see so they can move toward that. Mm-hmm. I have to believe. I operate on the assumption that we are winning. And in fact, I've been operating on that assumption for over 20 years now because an elder corrected me. He was a good friend, and he said, how's it going? How you guys doing? And with this project and that project? Yeah. I said, we're doing it. Okay. We're trying. He said, no. And he said it so sternly. He said, no, we are winning. You are doing it. It's not, you may be doing it partially, but no, you are doing it. If you weren't doing this work, then the threat wouldn't be so great against you. It wouldn't be working so hard to bring you down. People would be trying to tear your arguments up so much, when you see their chaos. Mm-hmm. And that's easier said than done. And I think that's one of the reasons why when I was brought up in the church, I had such a hard time with it because I just couldn't believe. And my father told me, he said, well, yeah, your issue is that you just can't believe, without questioning, what have you. We have to be in. And that may be the hardest thing to do and the strongest power that we have, to believe that we know, to act every day and every minute, every second as if this is my last opportunity to help African people, to pass on to our children, even when they're in some cases pretending not to listen, our truth, knowing that it's going to go forward, believing that we can win. Two of my, and always, every year, we talk about it here, the two historical figures who I love the most, our historical figures who I love the most, and there are a lot, but Wilma Rudolph and, not Mansa Musa, he was with Songhai. I'll come up on this name. I'm talking about Wilma Rudolph. Wilma Rudolph, she got polio, was crippled, blah, blah, blah. She's walking around on her elbows trying to get from point A to point B. And her mother and her went to the doctors, and the doctors said, you'll never walk again. And she didn't believe that. Her mother said, oh, no, they don't know what they're talking about. No, you're gonna walk. And Wilma Rudolph, she said, when she was a child, she said, I'm gonna run. Not only am I gonna run, I'm gonna fly. When we listen to motivational speakers, the best motivational speakers, they tell us don't ask or speak things into existence in terms of some future time. So don't say, I want to become a doctor. You say, I am a doctor. Mm-hmm. Don't say, I want this. You say, I have this. And your mind, being your employee, makes that happen. So what Wilma Rudolph did, and when you see the picture of her, one of the most famous picture of her in the Olympics turning that corner, she's airborne. Okay, her feet are nowhere near the ground. She's airborne. So it's these individuals give me, whenever I don't feel like being bothered with it anymore for that second, I sit down and somehow that pops into my head and I shut up, get back to work. It's a kind of a faith, and I don't like that word, but it's a kind of a faith that builds over time. So the elders that I have met who I respect, their periods of funks are gone. You know what they're doing is right. They know what they're doing is righteous. They're not worried about cousin, auntie, you know, what have you. They're not worried about whether there's evidence of it now, because probably 90% of the evidence is out there says that we're losing. But I don't believe that.
I was just when I was just thinking about Alkema's question as well. We are all collectively, we are connected.
Yes.
I think the part that we need to also put into perspective is how connected we are to the ancestors. This idea of death being the end, we have to relinquish that, because it works against us in the end. It makes us feel like the minority in the fight. It makes us feel smaller than we really are. And when you look at different rebellions and revolutions, anywhere you go in the Caribbean, here in the Americas, there were not the majority of people that were uprising. In fact, that's what happens when we read like about these things. What they don't tell is the story of the people who choose not to get involved.
Right.
or the people who are those people don't write books, right? They don't write books. So we don't put them into perspective. But no revolution anywhere, there's going to always be people who are not going to be involved. And I think you spoke to finding, like, you know, connecting to other families. You had mentioned that earlier. Yes. So just finding like-minded people and start from there. I think looking at, considering in America, we are the minority in America. Yeah. Globally, we are the majority, right? And so figuring out how to connect to those other parts of ourselves that just have a different geographical location. Absolutely. That right there begins to expand us in numbers and in strength. But I just wanted to kind of speak to that. But my last question, as far as the family unit is concerned. So I know we're coming up on time. Can you talk about some things that we could begin to do as Africans as Africans in a society that does everything in their effort to make sure that our family units remain in shambles? What are some realistic steps, big or small? I'd like to start small, that we can begin to take to start to correct some of those issues that we are seeing within the African family?
Well, two things I think that both of you have already said. We have to connect. I'm not worried about the global connection, even though I think that's important. But we have to connect quietly. We have been brought up to be very noisy people. And so everything that we're doing is broadcast. Now there needs to have conversation. There need to be voices that guide. There need to be voices that give ideas. But everybody doesn't need to be involved behind the microphone. We need to learn how to be able to do this work quietly. Like sometimes I talk to folks about organizing security in their homes and plans, and somebody will inevitably raise their hand or what have you and say, well, I said, don't tell me. I don't want to know, because if it's online, plus if you tell me, somebody puts a gun up to my wife, I'm gonna tell them exactly what you're doing. So we need to organize quietly. If we're too correct for this, then we have to have learned the lessons. And one of the lessons is that Yoruba is listening very, very closely. Everything that's being said. So those conversations can't become public discourse. We have to study those individuals and those families who we want to bring into our presence, and study them hard for years before even beginning to bring them into that outermost circle of our innermost, community. And then test and trust and all the rest of this, bringing them into the circle. This is going to take generations. Like you said, this is not the end. Transitioning now is not the end. We have to look at this in terms of generation after generation after generation. As our children need to understand, we have to start small and we have to start quiet, because we want to remain invisible. And why do we want to remain invisible? Because we're scared? No, but because we know what's going on in the society. We know that the vast majority of us would run to whoever is the figure of authority to tell, oh, those people over there, they're doing something funny. They got one of those red, black, and green flags and they're blah, blah, blah. So we have to organize in such a way that these families and within families, and our children can understand. Our daughter understood. Okay, there were certain things that she didn't say in certain places. There were certain things that were crystal clear to us, and she knew one of her first responsibilities was to be able to judge what she could tell somebody, what she could explain to somebody for her age. You know, she was clear within the context of our family. A little example of that: one of my relatives sent her a white doll for Christmas. She opened the package up, she looked at the doll, and she brought it right to me because she knew exactly what was going to happen, you know, as a result of this. And we got her replacement doll, one of us, but she knew. No one had to tell her, no one had to say anything, and she wasn't upset because she knew there was going to be balance. So that kind of mentality, truth, justice, order, balance, reciprocity, righteousness, all those things need to be brought into the context of those families. Those families need to sit down. Well, before the families come together, those individual families needs to sit down. They need to have a mission statement on their wall stating what they're about. The children need to have a mission statement. Each of the adults needs to have a mission statement. And then that community, that collection of families needs to have a mission statement. Now there are a lot of particulars, things that have to do, small things that have to do with security that I'm really trying to push now because I've noticed so much insecurity within our community relative to our safety, particularly our children's safety. But, you know, things that we assumed to be common sense when I was a child that aren't common sense anymore. So, you know, of course, I want folks to read what I have said. And in the book, Common Sense Security, there's 50 some things in there that people can start to do, that they can start to practice, that will begin the process of securing that sacred space, that safe space that you have to build for your family and those families together.
Speaking
Yes.
of common sense things, can you tell us what are the benefits of even being in a family unit? So much these days I hear the people don't even want a family no more. You know, I don't want to be married. I just, I'll just have my child. I'm good without having a father around, or vice versa. So can you just give us some common sense understanding of what is the benefits of having a connected family unit?
Well, if you realize that you are at war, then you have a clearer idea. The family helps to bring a clear idea of what your roles are within the family, what the family's roles are. The family gives you a sense of identity that connects you, as was just said, to your ancestors. It's not just a super extreme individualism where, you know, you got to go find yourself. You're already found. Before you're born, you're already found. For me right now, also the one of the primary benefits of family, and that's changed also, is defense, security. Okay, my daughter is 36 years old. Let somebody touch her. I'm not concerned about consequences. Let somebody touch her, please. You know, that was the same way I grew up. My father, he never said it, but I knew, touch his sons and see what happens. He wasn't concerned about the consequences. So that security is critical. When people don't think that they're secure, then that connection isn't there. People like to be protected. Even men like to be protected. I want to be in a community of men. So if something happens, I can call on these other brothers and we can go handle, or they can handle, you know, whatever it is that needs to be handled. That being defended is extremely important. You have the benefit of family if you allow people to become experts and have in their own domain, in those areas where they are experts. We have so many families where he or she, but usually he, wants it made to be believed that he knows everything about everything. So even in areas where she's the expert, he's trying to tell her what to do and how to do it. So when you have a sound family structure where there is respect, then you have the development of a much larger knowledge base, because people are free to learn and practice and experiment and study those things that they love the most. So they're bringing more to the family, bringing more knowledge to the family. They're a greater knowledge base. For me also, it's important, assuming that you have a solid family and you have people of right mind, it is a deterrent to child molestation. It is a major determinant to that. Not only because both of the complements are in check and they should be clear, but they're even more on the lookout for somebody who is a family member or a friend or whoever who may be in a position with their child to do something that he or she has no business doing. So they're more on alert because they know that they're at war and they know what's going on in the society, which is, of course, another part of that defensive, being secure situation. But you have people to call on. Most wealth is not, most people who become wealthy is not due to they went out, and did the stock market and got this education and got this job. Most of the serious wealth, that's passed on intergenerationally. That's passed on from the parents down to the child, so to be in a situation where you have sound thinking parents, they may not be wealthy parents, but they're sound thinking parents where they can find a way to make things happen, then you can walk out into this world or develop your own family, whatever, with a sense of financial security to, some degree. The lessons that get passed on. One of the most phenomenal lessons that I heard about was this mother she was a single mother, and she had like 5 or 6 children, and they whenever there was an emergency, there was this jar that was in the kitchen, and that was where the security money was. But every time that something happened, they figure out a way to get it done, and that was their financial thinking course, if you will, growing up, so that they didn't have to go into that cookie jar to get any money out of there, which was the family savings. When she transitioned, the children all got together, and they were sitting around the kitchen table, and it finally came up, who's going to get what, where, and they said, well, let's see what's in the cookie jar. Let's see what's in money jar. And they opened up the jar, and it was empty.
Nothing. I knew you was gonna say that.
It was empty. It was empty. She had taught them financial planning, how to handle things financially within the family context. They worked it out. They worked it out. So those kind of things you don't, I don't think you can get anywhere but family, because family knows each other better than anybody else. I don't care how many friends you know. I mean, I've been married to Enia longer than she's been with her family, but they still know her better than I do. So that sense of development there is extremely important. The benefits of family for the man and the woman is my take. And folks who I've talked to have been married who are older than me, you don't even begin to see the benefits until you've been married 30, 35 years. You don't even see the benefits. You see this and this is nice, but when you get to that age, you really start to see that other person's power. You really get to see how good they are. You really get to see how they are resilient. They trip, they get back up, they trip, they get back up. You see how they do that, and your pride and your sense of who this person is and their benefit to you, because you get to see where you messed up and they covered your behind and you didn't even realize it. You get to see the power of that other person, and you're not going to see that. I mean, with friends over time, you can do that, but not like somebody who is that intimate with you over your 30, 40, 50 years. It doesn't happen in the first 5 or 10 years. That doesn't say that the first 5 or 10 years of marriage are baloney. No, they're very, very important too. But in terms of really understanding that person, you have to be with that person for a while. Because yes.
Sorry. You can finish your thought. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah, that was my point. And that's a critical point that is hard for people to understand. Let me, in terms of us being at war in families, the last point I want to make on the benefit of the family, the complements, the couples, the families that are finding themselves, who have the courage and the insight to find themselves and to build in this war, they have to understand how much of a model they are for other folks who are coming in this direction. A study done here in Atlanta by a sister who there was a working class poor neighborhood that the childbirth rates had gone down. So she went and she interviewed a number of middle schoolers and lower level high schoolers. All these folks were Black, male and female, and she asked them a bunch of questions. But one of the questions was, did they want to have children when they, they want to have children, and when did they want to have children? And she was really pleased with the answer because all of them wanted to have children, and all of them wanted to be financially secure in that Crest-Welsing sense before they got, married. But she was disturbed that none of them wanted to get married. Not a single one of them wanted to get married. And so she went back and she asked some other questions, and she asked, why don't you want to get married? Blah, blah, blah. What she discovered was that in this community, none of these children knew anyone who had been or was married. They didn't have any models, so it would never have occurred to them get married. So the benefit of having a family and being married on the front line, if you will, the benefits go far beyond the family and the children involved. They go into the community because they strengthen the couples who are trying to find their way, because there's this couple over here and this couple over here who made it, and I can talk to them, and they told me, and we keep moving forward because we know that it can be done. May not be easy, but we know that it can be done.
Excellent.
What I was going to just ask, and I know we're going to be wrapping up soon. We started a little early, but I was watching this documentary the other day, and it was just talking about like the universe, and like, how we're talking about how nature teaches us. And one of the things that came to my mind is just how, just from the universe down to the setup within our bodies as far as our cells and everything working in its place and doing its thing, right? And everything has its function and its purpose. And when all those things are focused on that function, the collective works works collectively as a whole, and it functions the way it's supposed to function. It gets out of whack when we take on the whole idea of, well, why can't I do what you're doing? Why can't I function the way that you're functioning? Someone asked me the other day, what do I think about roles? Like man, woman in the family dynamic, and as far as equality. And my response was, and this is me, I've grown a lot in this area. My response was, the way that I see equality is that everyone's role is equally important.
That's it.
That's pretty much, that's what came to my mind, and that's what I said. And so as far as I'm speaking as a woman in this sense, if you could speak to this, I find that oftentimes we get so caught up and so projected on by the European, right? And what you see as family, and what your role should be as a woman, and all of these type of things. And I find that some of us, we put so much energy in trying to compete with our men that we rob ourselves of really understanding the fullness of what it means to be a woman, right?
Teaching Hanifa.
And so if you could speak to roles, and where you talk about complementary, where it's how important understanding your role, the purpose of the role, and the function of the role, how important it is to the family unit and the family dynamic. You can start with the woman, the man, all the way down to the children. I mean, you could throw the puppy in there if you want, but yeah. If you could speak to that, please, I would appreciate it.
I'll start with something that I say to folks who are interested in finding a compliment, who are committed to finding a compliment.
Okay.
The first thing that you need to do is sit back and make a list of what you're not good at. the first thing that you do. Don't tell me what you're looking for. Don't tell me, what she's got to have. Blah, blah. Look, answer the question of what you're not good at.
Oh, that's good.
It tells you what you need to look for. And it's not like this perfect list and she's supposed to or he's supposed to fit everything. But you need to know what you're good at because you're supposed to be building something bigger than both of you, not replicating, not to the same wheel coming together. I grew up in a home, again, these stories, but I grew up in a home where I came to the conclusion, and I use the word, any of y'all doesn't like it that much, but I use the word domains. When I was a boy, my father was military full-time. My mother had a number of part-time jobs. He had part-time jobs, blah, blah, blah. But he was the person who brought the main check home. And when he came home, and I witnessed this, I don't know how many thousands of times, I witnessed him coming home, taking the check out of his pocket and putting it in her hand, and then going to change his clothes and blah, blah, blah. And then later I would witness her every week giving him an allowance. And I'm a little boy, and my first thought is, this what it's going to be like? When I'm grown, but I came to understand later because he understood, not only was he bad with money, she was good with it. And that was one of the reasons that he went after her, was because she was good with money. So she was able to buy him a Volkswagen Super Beetle back in 1975, cash. Was able to pay off a house in like 11 years. And they bought a huge tract of land in Kinsey, Alabama, and had a house built from scratch because of how she managed money. And he didn't interfere. He let her do what she knew how to do best. So I call these domains. Like in this house, in this family, security is my area. Any out may want to question this or ask about that or blah, blah, blah. But in terms of me saying that door needs to be locked or that blah, 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 or that, she's got no problems because she knows that whatever I decide is good for the family. My job is to look out for the family. And the same thing with her. I'll say something like spirituality, healthcare, medicinal things like that. I go to her, and I'm not going to go to anybody past her because she is already consulted with probably everybody on the issue, or she's consulting now because that's her area of expertise. That's one of her areas of expertise. That's her domain. She tells me drink this, I'm not going to rebel. I know that whatever it is, it's good for us.
Got it.
Good for us. So if we respect that, I'm not even going to get into the role. I know some women who can outshoot men. So, and who know more about security than the men do. So there's no reason why that shouldn't be their domain in that family. And he should understand that. And vice versa. So that needs to be brought within the context of the children. That needs to be taught to the children as they're coming up in terms of what they should be looking for. And this role stuff, we really need to get away from this patriarchy. It's really, as well as a whole bunch of other things relative to that, it's messing us up. And now we're having to not only recover from racism, but recover from this insanity of roles based on stupid stuff.
Yes.
I remember, last point, remember, look, when I was taking stratification, I was looking at blue collar, white collar, pink collar jobs, pink collar being the jobs that women mostly had. And this was over time since early in the 20th century. And I looked at, particularly I was looking at clerical type works. The secretaries, initially, secretaries in this country were men. They weren't women, they were men. And it was considered to be a job that required intelligence. They were well paid. As soon as it switched over to women and became a pink collar job, the incomes went down. The level of intelligence assumed went down. So that kind of nonsense where you're doing exactly the same thing, exactly the same thing, that's to remove that what you talked about, Sister Hanifa, in terms of the amount of prestige that's accorded this particular role versus that particular role, men's work versus women's work. That's got to go. And that never was the case in our community. When we look back at the Reconstruction, and after that, women will be teachers and the man might be working in a coal mine. The man might be working, cleaning up the street. The man might be working. And she, in terms of the prestige in society, was at a higher level. We didn't let that bother us. Now we have these ego things going on where we can't deal with somebody if they're, performing a role that they're not supposed to be doing. The man's supposed to bring the money home. So if she's making more money than he is, and then it's not a good match. It's their money,
Yeah, that's insanity. It's insanity.
Yes,
Mama,
it is.
I can sit and listen to you all night long and never get bored. This is amazing.
I'm enjoying this.
Can you tell the family where they can find your work? How can they get your books? One of 27 family has 27 published books out. And I have several of them. And I can tell you the ones I do have are powerful. Whenever you come to town, I'm so busy running around doing all kind of other stuff. By the time I get back to the table with your book, everything's gone. I'm like, no. So where can they find your work?
They can go to www.akobenhouse.com. That's AKOBENHOUSE. AKOBENHOUSE.com. Now, if they want Kindle things, then Amazon has my books on Kindle, I believe all except for one. My books are also available on Amazon, but Amazon gets their cut. If they come to Akoben House, which is our site, of course, we get the bulk of the proceeds. But www.akobenhouse.com. If they forget that, of course, they can come to Bob and Mwalimu Baruti online, and I'll gladly give them the information. And they need to know, and I keep forgetting to tell people, every penny from these books goes to the survival of Akoben Institute. It's not like I'm getting a new outfit every week or what have you. No, the money goes to make sure that this place survives. It survived for 21 years, and we expect it to survive until both of us are gone.
Ashay. Beautiful, beautiful. Well, we didn't have questions, and I always know whenever we don't have a lot of questions, it's because people are tuned in. People are focused in on what you're saying. So we appreciate the family that's watching, those who are sharing. Get the word out, family. We always say, every week, if you've been on this show with us this whole hour and some change, you know that there has been all type of diamonds and gems dropped here this evening. So please share this information with other people so they too can become informed and understand what makes the family unit so crucial to our survival in this day and time. Baba, do you have any parting words you want to give the family?
Yes, I do. I want the family to appreciate you two, because this is not easy work, not just the organizing and putting it together, but having the courage to do this. This requires some courage. I don't mean some in a little sense. This requires some courage to do this. You set yourselves up as targets, not that somebody has a target on your back, but you set yourselves as targets where there are opportunities that may come along that may produce greater income or what have you. You can't go that route, at least that normal route of doing that, because you have decided that you're going to work for African people, for the African family. So I appreciate you all asking me to come on. This has been a joy. I hope people take the words of all, because the jewels came from you all as well, and work toward building us some strong families, some strong community, and some strong sacred spaces.
Thank you so much, Baba. We appreciate you and all that you do as well. Hanifa?
No, he said everything. Thank you so much for coming on, and we appreciate you. I'm learning how to get as much as I possibly could get from our elders and those that hold the wisdom, because they're not going to be around forever. And so having you on here, this is something that we can play over and over and over again. And so thank you. You didn't have to, and thank you for giving us your time and your energy and sharing your wisdom with us. We truly appreciate it.
Yeah. Would you promise us that you come back again soon?
Yes. Sound like I answered that like somebody asking somebody, will you marry me? Yes. Let me know. We'll work it out.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, family, share the information. Me and Hanifa can be found right here on Facebook under the Empower Hour Talk Show. Each and every Monday, we do this at 8 p.m. We come to you with impactful topics of discussion that affect our everyday lives. Stay tuned for next week, because Hanifa and I coming to you with the hottest topics That's on the lips and tongues of us here right now. So stay tuned for that next Monday. Take care of each other out there, family. Peace.